Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to learn something about the shared preferences. So shared preferences is nothing but it is a way of saving the user data or user settings on our application even if the user exits out of our application. So one way of storing the user data was by using databases, but a more efficient approach wherein you need to save a little bit of data from the user is by using shared preferences. So it is basically one of the most efficient way of storing user data or retaining user data even if the user exits out of our application. So for the sake of this tutorial, we have created a new project and we are actually going to have a field here for the username, wherein user is going to enter the username, and we are also going to have one more field for the password where the user is going to type in his password. And finally we have a button here which is called as save, which is going to save the information for us. And we are also going to have one more button here which is called as display, which is going to eventually display the contents which are stored in the username and password. And if we try to exit out of the application and if we return back, we still will be able to retrieve the data from the user. So let's go ahead and create the layout. So the first thing which we are going to need is we are going to need two large text, so one for the username and one for the password. So let's go ahead and go into text and let's change the text to username, as this is going to accept an username, and we go right here and paste the text view for password. So we change the text to password. So once we have it, the next thing which we do is that we have text fields. So we drag a plain text field here and let's give it a width of 200 pixels so that we could fit it properly. So let's say layout width is going to be 300, or let's say 200 dp. So we type 200 dp, and also we drag a plain text for the password and we do the same with this. So the width of this is going to be 200 dp as well. So as you could see, we now have two fields, one for the username and one for the password. Now it's better if we arrange it in this manner, it would look more proper. So this one for the username and this one for the password. So once we have our basic setup, the next thing which we do is that we go ahead and create two buttons here, one for adding the data so that the data would be stored, and the next one would be to display the data. So we go right here and select a button, drag it over here, drop it, and let's say this button is going to display the text as add. So we go to the text and change the text of the button to add, as this is going to add the shared preference. And let's go ahead and drag one more button, and let's say this button is going to display contents, or let's just name it as display. So once this is done, the next thing which we need to do is that we need to assign IDs to each of the edit text or the plain texts as well as these buttons. And we don't need to assign IDs to these texts actually, that is because we are not going to be changing them. So the first thing which we do is that we give IDs to these. So we select it, go to properties, select the property called ID, and as this is going to save the username, we are going to name it as username input. And now for the password, now it is going to ask us that update usages as well. Click yes. And for the password field, let's name this as password input. So this has ID as password input and this has an ID as the username input. So once we have IDs, we also need to assign the IDs as well as on clicks for the button. So let's go ahead and give on clicks to this button, and IDs won't be as much important because we won't be referencing them in the Java code. So let's say the on click for add is going to be save info, as this is going to save info, and for display on click is going to be display data. Now for the add, let's say the S is not in capitals, that is because it is a method. It is better to save the method in camel case. So now once everything is set up, the next thing which we need to do is that we need to add one more text view here so as to display the contents which I entered here. So we select a large text, drag it and drop it over here, and as we are going to reference this in our Java code, we need to give an ID to this. So we go to properties, go to ID, and let's name this as my text. So once we have assigned IDs to each and everything, the next thing which we need to do is that we need to reference them inside the Java code. So we switch on to this main activity.java. We clean up the code. So once we clean up the code, we go ahead and create references to each of the text views and the edit text. So we type edit text and let's name it as user input, and we are going to copy the same for password. So we copy it, paste it here and change it to password input. And we also need a reference to text view, so we type text view and let's say the text view's name is my text. So this is basically the declaration, and now we need to get an actual reference. So we go inside on create and we type user input equals, as this is an edit text, we typecast it to edit text. Then we type in find view by ID r.id.username input. So we have a reference to username input. Now we need to have the reference to the password input. So we do the same for password input. So we type password input equals, typecast it to edit text. Then we type in find view by ID r.id.password input. Now the final reference we need to get is for the my text. So we type my text equals, and this is going to be a text view. So we type text view and then we type find view by ID r.id.myText, and it is showing us an error, and that is because we have declared this as texture view instead of text view. So make sure that you correct it. So this is text view, and as soon as we add that, the error is gone. So basically we have a reference to each and every text view which we need and each and every plain text which we need in this tutorial, and we have basically designed the layout in this tutorial, and in the next tutorial we'll be actually writing the Java code for handling the shared preferences. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you.